Good evening, I'm Claudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. Will Ukraine's fate be decided over the heads of Ukrainians? The U.S. president says there is no chance of that happening, but the outcome of the Alaska summit is far from certain. The long-anticipated meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin starts in just over an hour, and we're here to bring you more right before it happens. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. The biggest such event to date, Poland celebrates its Polish Armed Forces Day with not one, but two major parades. Anti-Polish banner raised by Israeli fans sparks countrywide controversy. And Warsaw and Kraków listed among the safest cities in Europe. As Vladimir Putin apparently landed in Alaska, many in Ukraine fear the meeting between the U.S. and Russian presidents could see the two men cutting a deal that would undercut Ukrainian security and the country's future. Joining me now from Kyiv is our correspondent Alex Kadier. Good evening, Alex. As we're only moments away from when the summit is supposed to begin, what are the expectations that Ukrainians have for this meeting?
Good evening, Claudia. It's safe to say that the expectations from Ukrainians in general are rather low. They are not particularly glued to their televisions expecting a major breakthrough for peace in their country. They have not, as far as they're concerned, heard enough from the U.S. president to indicate that he understands that this invasion was started by Russia and therefore Russia has to be held accountable. There have been concerning messages from the U.S. president about land swaps, as he described them, but in reality that would be exchanging unoccupied Ukrainian land for occupied Ukrainian land, something that is a profound concern and frankly a non-starter for so many Ukrainians. I put that question to the country's former deputy prime minister, now a serving member of parliament. I asked her how most Ukrainians feel about the idea of a land swap.
It's as if you're living in the apartment, suddenly your neighbor comes in, takes over part of your apartment and then, rapes your sister, kills your brother, deports your child, and you are being told, well, you have to live with this particular neighbor in your own apartment, but he will own part of it. It's impossible to imagine that is happening and is being discussed as a real case scenario.
And as this high-level diplomacy continues, Claudia, we've had more civilian deaths reported across the country in the last 24 hours. More than 90 drones fired by Russia, 2 Iskander missiles as well. We've had 4 reported dead in the Kharkiv region, 1 civilian killed in Dnipropetrovsk, and in the last few hours in Sumy as well. So the attacks, although they may not be targeting cities like here in Kyiv like they were in the last couple of weeks, are still claiming civilian lives across Ukraine. Now, on that idea of conceding Ukrainian land in exchange for occupied Ukrainian territory, the U.S. president was pressed on that on his way to Alaska on Air Force One. This is what he had to say.
They'll be discussed, but I've got to let Ukraine make that decision. And I think they'll make a proper decision. But I'm not here to negotiate for Ukraine. I'm here to get them at a table.
So at least there, Donald Trump allowing some agency for Ukraine, some decision-making power. He said that he hopes to be able to bring the 3 leaders together, but also some tough talk from Donald Trump saying that if he doesn't feel a deal can be made, he will walk away from these talks with Vladimir Putin. And if a ceasefire isn't agreed in the short order, hopefully today, he says he will not be happy at all. Now, that will bring some hope to Ukrainians, but certainly the messaging across the country, people that we've been speaking to, is that when it comes to any peace agreement, frankly, they will believe it when they see it, because as they see it, many ceasefire agreements have been reached by the Russian side. So not a lot of anticipation, not a lot of hope, but certainly the stage is set in Alaska, and Ukraine awaits to see how it will affect its fate. Claudia.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was Alex Kadier reporting live from Kyiv. As U.S. President Donald Trump left for the summit in Alaska, he spoke on the phone to Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko. According to Trump's post on his social media site Truth Social, Vladimir Putin's visit to the United States was one of the topics discussed. Trump wrote in the Post that the purpose of the phone call was to thank Lukashenko for the release of 16 political prisoners and urge the release of 1,300 more. Our conversation was a very good one, Trump said, adding, "I look forward to meeting President Lukashenko in the future." The Belarusian state news agency reported that the U.S. president accepted Lukashenko's invitation to visit Minsk together with his family. Since Trump took office, the administration in Washington has been attempting to establish friendly relations with the Belarusian dictator. After the visit of U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg to Minsk in June, the Lukashenko regime freed a number of political prisoners, including former presidential candidate Serhiy Tsikhanouski. Foreign volunteers in the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine say that the upcoming meeting between Trump and Putin worries them, putting the efforts of thousands of soldiers into question. On the Zaporizhzhia front, Russian assault group are still highly active. More details in this report by VOTAK correspondent Artem Listopad.
British citizen Billy carefully repeats the movements of his fellow foreign volunteer, the more experienced Matt.
Yeah.
The infantryman left the front line 4 days ago, but will soon have to go back to defend Ukrainian land. Both men serve in the Samarov Wolves battalion.
The situation in Zaporizhzhia is, in my mind, a bit, could be sketchy, is the word I think I could figure for that. But on our positions, there has been an uptick in activity, especially a lot more drones. They are moving a load of tanks, APCs, down here, a lot more artillery pieces.
Billy came to the front out of a sense of justice, having seen schools and hospitals bombed in the news. He emphasizes that his country has been a long-time ally of Ukraine, which is why he decided to demonstrate his support personally.
There shouldn't be no swap of territory. There shouldn't be, we're going to cede this territory to Putin, because in my mind that only gets him one step closer to the rest of Europe. He wants Poland, he wants the Baltic states, and next before we know it, he'll be on the border with Germany. You know, he wants to like make this modern day Soviet Union, which we just can't allow.
The soldier looks at the news from global media outlets with suspicion. The main question, whether the Trump-Putin meeting can bring peace or lead to new threats, gives him pause. He says he will continue fighting even if the front is frozen, as such an outcome might help prepare ground for a new phase of the war.
Personally, I think if Ukrainian soldiers were told to stop, I think there would be a big bunch of soldiers that would prefer to go and do a guerrilla warfare. A lot of these soldiers have lost kids, babies, they've lost limbs themselves, and they still come back to fight.
There is no sign of a ceasefire on the Zaporizhzhia front, the soldiers emphasize. Russian forces continue to advance in small assault groups.
And I think this meeting in Alaska is just for PR, to show that they're trying to do something about it.
Report by Artem Listopad, VOTAK.
The Polish armed forces were celebrated across the country on Thursday, while the largest parade attended by Polish officials marched through the capital city of Warsaw. For the very first time in its history, the Polish Baltic Sea coastline witnessed the spectacle, marking the anniversary of the 1920 Battle of Warsaw, when Polish forces trounced Soviet Russia. While the mood may have been celebratory, it also served as a reminder of defense challenges currently at stake. Our defense correspondent Zuzanna Jurek reports.
A submarine, over 20 naval ships, as well as accompanying helicopters, including the 340 Saab rapid response aircraft, marched through the northernmost peninsula of Hel in Poland during the August 15th Armed Forces Day. The parade marks the 1920 victory over the Bolshevik forces during the Battle of Warsaw, also referred to as the Miracle on Vistula. Each year is marked by the Armed Forces Parade across Poland, with this year being first such occasion that the parade also made ways into the Baltic Sea, a move which was well received by the parade goers.
The ships made a very strong impression on me. This is the first time I've seen a naval parade. My son is a serviceman, and I'm proud of the Polish armed forces. I drove 600 kilometers just to see the parade. I'm retired from active service now, and I wear the Polish flag proudly. I like this very much.
Simultaneously, as is customary, the armed forces also paraded through the capital city of Warsaw. In their thousands, they marched hand in hand with the most modern equipment currently available to the armed forces, including the F-16 fighter jets, Korean K-2 tanks, as well as the Patriot anti-missile defense systems. The parade was also attended by representatives of the Polish government, including the President of Poland, Karol Nawrocki, who took the opportunity to remind people about the key lessons which could be drawn from the chapter of history being celebrated today.
Zwycięstwo nad bolszewikami.
The victory over the Bolsheviks in 1920 taught us an important lesson. It taught us that today's neo-imperial Russia, any Russia, because today's Russia isn't much different from its Soviet predecessor, is not undefeatable. That's what the heroes of 1920 tell us, and I want our officers and soldiers today to hear it. Russia is not undefeatable.
But while the President of Poland focused on the key historical lessons which could be drawn from the 1920 battle, the Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz rather focused on the short-term goals on how to prepare for modern-day challenges.
Stajemy dzisiaj tutaj, żeby też powiedzieć, w jakim miejscu jest polska armia.
We stand here today to recognize what the Polish army has achieved and how much it's developed. This parade is the largest in history, and our army is the largest it's been since 1989. It's the third largest army in the North Atlantic Alliance in terms of the number of soldiers, but our goal is even more ambitious. In the next 5 years, by the end of this decade, we won't just be in the top 3 in terms of numbers, we'll be among the leading NATO countries in terms of operational capabilities, which are no less important.
And in order to be able to withstand these modern-day challenges, as well as make sure that the armed forces are up to scratch, Poland is currently undertaking huge upgrades and updates to both its current military equipment, as well as realizing a pipeline of purchases and projects currently underway. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
As the Polish capital and the coast enjoy the annual celebrations of Armed Forces Day, the danger beyond Poland's eastern border is more evident today than ever. Poland is now among NATO's top defense spenders, putting an emphasis on becoming more self-reliant in terms of domestic military production. Sasha Farbach has more on the Polish military and its modernization efforts.
Friday's military parade carries a message beyond remembrance. According to experts, it is a signal to allies and adversaries alike that Poland is prepared for whatever comes next.
Military parade is a show of force. It's natural. The message is not only to interior message to our society, it's also a message sent abroad, to especially to Russia. That Polish army is ready and can and have enough defense capabilities to stop the potential aggression.
In recent years, Poland has gone on a defense spending spree, arming itself with the latest land, sea and air power. Warsaw is now among NATO's top defense spenders, with plans for the largest tank fleet in Europe, over 1,100 by 2030, more than Germany, the UK and France combined. This includes the K-2 Black Panther tank from South Korea, as well as the German Leopard 2. It's also ordering 96 Apache helicopters, second only to the United States, and 32 cutting-edge F-35 jets to guard NATO's eastern flank. But it isn't just modern equipment from abroad. Poland is also beefing up its own industry.
And we also have to purchase simultaneously infantry fighting vehicles in Polish industry. We have to purchase counter-drone systems. We have to adapt to the modern warfare. So we also have to buy a lot of unmanned aerial vehicles.
Alongside modern tanks and air systems from South Korea and the U.S., Poland fields homegrown firepower, from the Krab self-propelled howitzer to the Rosomak armored fighting vehicle. The war in Ukraine has also underscored the importance of UAVs, and Poland's Fly-Eye drone is now part of its deterrence strategy. Ordinary Poles say they can feel the difference.
We have so many hopes. And looking at all the equipment and everything, looking at the parade, I'm really impressed and really proud as a Pole, absolutely.
Well, we have the kind of neighbors we have. It's very modern now. When you walk between foreign and domestically produced vehicles, there isn't much of a difference. We're going in the right direction for sure, and we're getting to the level of Western states.
No matter whether the military hardware is Polish or foreign, the message is the same. Poland is ready for whatever comes next. and today's display makes that unmistakably clear. Sasha Farbach for TVP World.
And now the story of a scandalous banner raised by Israeli football fans during a match against Polish club Raków Częstochowa. The sign said murders since the 1939, suggesting that Poles bear some responsibility for the Holocaust. The banner has been heavily condemned by top Polish officials and the Israeli embassy in Warsaw, and it is not the first time Poland has been wrongly accused of being the perpetrator rather than the victim of the World War II genocide. Kazimierz Łysiak reports.
It was supposed to be just another football match in the UEFA Conference League, but instead it has since turned into an all-out international scandal. On Thursday, Polish football club Raków Częstochowa faced off against the Israeli Maccabi Haifa, and the Polish fans were stunned to see a banner among the Israeli fans saying "murderers since 1939", a clear suggestion that Poles were perhaps somehow partially to blame for the atrocities committed by the Nazi Germans during the Second World War. Polish top officials were quick to react, including Polish President Karol Nawrocki and Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski.
The scandalous banner displayed by Maccabi Haifa fans insults the memory of Polish citizens, victims of World War II, including 3 million Jews. Stupidity that no words can justify.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs strongly condemns the behavior of some fans during the Maccabi Haifa Raków Częstochowa match.
The Israeli embassy has also denounced the banner.
Disgusting behavior from some fans of Maccabi Haifa during the match with Raków Częstochowa. There is no place for such words and actions from any side, neither at the stadium nor anywhere else. Never. These shameful incidents do not reflect the spirit of the majority of Israeli fans.
Still, such banners are especially hurtful for Poles, who were some of the biggest victims of the Nazi German crimes in the Second World War. In fact, I am standing in front of a monument dedicated to the Polish Jews who fought in the Warsaw Ghetto uprising.
It's absolutely clear that both Poles and Jews were not the perpetrators, but the victims of the terror by Nazi Germany. And one really has to remember that a great majority of Jews killed by Nazi Germany, the German state in itself, were the citizens of the Second Republic of Poland.
And this is not the first time that we've seen a false narrative on Poland's role in the war. Poland has been actively for years fighting the misconception of the so-called Polish death camps, a phrase most famously used by the former U.S. President Barack Obama, for which he later apologized. The issue regularly resurfaces in modern-day politics, and perhaps the strongest comment yet on the latest scandal comes from the new U.S. nominee for ambassador to Poland, Thomas Rose.
As a proud American Jew and an unflinching supporter of Israel, I am beyond furious, disgusted, outraged, and ashamed by the damnable spectacle of anti-Polish hate staged yesterday by Maccabi Haifa fans. This was not mere hooliganism. It was more, much more. It was a depraved, calculated act of venomous slander, a murderous blood libel against a good and decent people.
The issue of historical blame continues to be the bone of contention between Poland and Israel. Quite recently, the Times of Israel media outlet called the new Polish president Karol Nawrocki the Holocaust revisionist. But for Poles, banners such as the one from the latest football match on Thursday are exactly that, the twisting of truth on the genocide committed not by Poles, but by Nazi Germans. From Warsaw, Kazimierz Łysiak, TVP World.
According to the Safe Destinations Index by UK-based Riviera Travel, Warsaw and Krakow are among some of the safest cities in Europe, with Krakow taking 5th and Warsaw taking 3rd place in the ranking. But what is the reason for these two Polish cities scoring so high? Anastasia Yanchenko asked citizens and tourists what they think and what was the reason behind the placement.
Safety and cleanliness, two of the most important factors when choosing a travel destination, or even more so, a place to settle down and build a peaceful life. Poland is cementing its reputation as one of Europe's safest destinations. Krakow ranks 5th among the continent's safest cities, while Warsaw has held 3rd place for the past 5 years. We visited Warsaw's most popular spots, from the Old Town Square to the lively streets around the city's downtown, to ask both the locals and visitors how safe they feel in the Polish capital.
Well, I think they come here, it's safe, the economy is growing very nicely. Well, and from a foreigner perspective, it's very friendly. A lot of people speak English.
We came to Warsaw from another city and we really like it. In the past couple of years, the situation has vastly improved in terms of cleanliness and safety.
Warsaw and Krakow are very popular with tourists. While the capital saw more than 21 million visitors last year, Krakow welcomed 14 million in the same time period. Among the two cities' biggest draws, according to tourists, is their safe, clean and reliable public transport. Buses, trams and metro lines allow visitors to move around easily, explore historic streets late into the night and enjoy the city's key cultural attractions.
I travel often and know what other cities are like. I like everything here. It's easy to get wherever I need to go.
I'm Georgian and moved to Warsaw a few years ago. Warsaw is convenient, safe, and the public transport network is excellent.
Dubrovnik topped the safety list with its medieval charm, low crime rates and well-organized tourist infrastructure, with Tallinn coming in second thanks to its historic architecture and strong digital security. While Warsaw and Krakow have made it to the top of safety rankings, local law enforcement is still advising that safety measures still should be taken, especially when visiting new destinations, no matter how safe they may seem. This report for TVP World by Anastasia Yanchenko.
Hammering out a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. This is the main hope for today's Trump-Putin meeting set to begin in Alaska in about an hour. And yet the absence of Volodymyr Zelensky at the meeting sparked concerns that terms agreed at any point could not be in Ukraine or Europe's favor. But is there any guarantee that any sort of consensus is going to be reached is up for debate. Bogdan Nahailo, editor-in-chief of Kyiv Post, joins me ahead of the scheduled summit to discuss the latest. Mr. Nahailo, great to see you in the studio, especially on such an important day.
Good evening and congratulations on Polish Army Day.
Thank you very much. So let's start from the top with everything that's been happening throughout the day. Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, arrived in a USSR t-shirt. We've all seen that. A subtle hint of the delegation's, I would say, Soviet nostalgia, so to speak. Is this one of the signals that Russia is not taking this meeting entirely seriously, perhaps?
Yes, it is a signal because you may recall that recently when Witkoff was in Moscow, Putin gave him an award for Trump to give the son of a CIA agent who had gone over to the Russian side. It was totally disrespectful. But on the other hand, the Americans have done their little pinprick because, as you've seen, the journalists that arrived from Russia were given very Spartan conditions, not in a hotel, but in an improvised shelter in a stadium, and have been complaining about that. But I think, what is also telling, you've already said that Zelensky's not there. All right, he's not there, but perhaps he would have been kidnapped by the two of them, so better he stay away when the two Tarzans, self-styled Tarzans, meet. But I'm surprised to see tonight that Kellogg, who is supposed to be the representative of Trump for Ukraine, is also not there. So what is being discussed? On the other hand, we have seen that Trump has backtracked under pressure from Western leaders, including Polish leaders, jointly with the European ones, from saying that he will demand a swap of territories and he will try and get both sides to come to an agreement. Now he's saying this is a preliminary meeting. We're not expecting great results. I'm trying to take a sounding from Putin to see if he's amenable to pursuing peace negotiations, which is a different tone and a different set of expectations from a week ago.
Definitely. Russia's RIA news agency reported on Friday that Russian Special Envoy Kirill Dmitriev described the mood ahead of this meeting, which is supposed to take place in just a moment, as combative ahead of the meeting between Putin and Trump. Do you think this assessment is a reason to worry about the outcome of this meeting?
Well, I think that's for a Western audience. at home, if we've been following the Russian narratives for state-run media, it's very gung-ho. Finally, you see, we're out of isolation. This is very important. They're taking us seriously. Finally, again, Russia counts for something. So for them, they're selling it as very much a breakthrough after 2-3 years of isolation, and as a chance to set its own terms with a leader that's seen as erratic, inconsistent, and at the end of the day, amenable to Russian demands. And I think what they're really after is not just the international recognition again, but the lessening of sanctions, more time delays so that they can move forward on the ground and get an even better position for any potential compromise, that is a lasting ceasefire.
We've also heard about President Trump speaking to Alexander Lukashenko and apparently accepting an invite with his family to Minsk. Are you surprised that this call took place only hours before the meeting about the fate of Ukraine is supposed to take place?
I am indeed. I think we're all surprised, especially, we've just had the 5th anniversary of the repressive crackdown by the man who rigged the election, Belarus's dictator and the vassal of Moscow. So yes. On the other hand, if we're to be generous, we can perhaps interpret this as Trump playing games, trying to steer Lukashenko away. But he's not going to steer Lukashenko away from, the economic trough that Belarus feeds from, and also the Belarus's dictator's personal security, because it's really only Putin that's keeping him in power.
As we talk about this meeting, which is set to take place, and we were looking forward to it taking place, and this call that we just saw between Mr. Trump and Mr. Lukashenko, how accurate do you think is the statement that Mr. Trump is, in a way, bringing dictators back into the international, out of the international isolation and back into the fold?
Well, that's, I think, very politely and generously put by you. I think the reality is that Trump has wrecked international law. He's totally ignored the rules of the game and a rules-based system in international law, the UN Charter, for example, even, sort of the International Criminal Court, all of these things. He's presented it as if he alone will dictate to the world, who he can do business with, who is worthy of his attention, etc., and that only he can produce results. He's looking very stupid. He's painted himself into a corner, and unless he produces some results and is not made a fool of publicly by Putin, then he's in bad shape. But remember, he is trying to distract the world's attention away, and particularly the American attention away, from the Epstein case, from domestic difficulties, from having taken over the police system in Washington, which some compare to a coup d'etat, effectively. There's a lot happening. So for him, this is, if you want, a shield and a way of trying to, shall we say, rehabilitate his reputation.
And I have to stop you this very moment just for a second, because the pictures that we can see, the video we can see right on the screen is a live feed of Air Force One that landed in Alaska, and we're only moments away from seeing President Trump actually making history and stepping out of Air Force One to head to the meeting, which is set to take place. And according to official information, it's supposed to start at 9:30 p.m. CET, so we will see what happens next. But
is he being reminded that he's in America, Alaska, or is he in Russia?
This is a question that's not a question for me. I suppose some people will be looking for an answer to that question. We all hope he does. But as we speak about Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin in this meeting, which is set to take place, is there any place in those negotiations and that conversation which is set to take place? Some say from 6 to 7 hours, and then having the aides join in for the meeting. Is there any point in that negotiation where we're going to see the two agree on certain conditions?
I think that there is a bottom line that they will agree on, that is to drag out time and to talk of another meeting, potentially with Zelensky and maybe a European representative, potentially being represented. But Putin will want to buy time, and Putin, having taken, you note that most of his advisors, apart from Lavrov, are people in the economic sphere. What they're really after is a lessening of or suspension of sanctions. And if Putin can get that, if he can get Trump to say, okay, I'll not go forward with any harsher sanctions and ease what we have, but in the meantime think about, giving us something in return. I think that for both of them will be the best deal and will leave everybody else unhappy. I mean, the attacks on Ukraine are continuing. Today, my phone is constantly ringing with error alerts. That's ongoing. But then the Ukrainians are also...
And there's cyber attacks across Europe as well. We only heard from Norway about the cyber attack, which led to a problem with the dam earlier in April.
It's what you said at the outset. The Russian attitude is, oh, great, we're in America, we're back on the show, on the stage. But at the same time, they're playing tough to say that we will do what we want in any case.
You mentioned a trilateral meeting, and you mentioned that President Trump was pointing in a direction of this is just a preliminary meeting. We're going to see how things go with President Putin. Peskov confirmed that, as quoted by Russia's Interfax news agency, that a three-way meeting could take place following the Alaska summit on Ukraine, provided talks between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump produce results. What do you think is the future of trilateral meeting? And do you think that Vladimir Putin at any point in time is going to agree to such a meeting, or is it another smokescreen?
Look, I don't think the trilateral meeting is the best scenario because, again, it'll be 2 against 1. It'll be one dictator and one tough guy that perhaps is not the most sophisticated diplomat on this planet, ganging up against Zelensky. Zelensky needs in that room at least the representative of the EU or 1 or 2 of the top leaders of Europe to back him up, because otherwise they will bully him. He will play tough, and then they will come out of the meeting and say, look, Zelensky is not playing ball with us. So it could be a kidnapping scenario. So let's not rush with the idea of a trilateral meeting as a panacea, as a formula. It could be a trap. The best thing is to have a more sort of, should I say, plenary meeting of the key players, and Europe has to be represented. There's no room for the UN, even if the UN isn't doing anything. Symbolically, there's the UN Charter.
There's a meaning to
perhaps
to
the Secretary General as a sort of neutral observer. It needs to be prepared in a much more sophisticated way than just two gangsters, if you were, up against a victim.
Thank you so much. Bogdan Nahailo, editor-in-chief of Kyiv Post, was my guest. Great to have you back in the studio. Thank you. And so this would be all for now. I'm Klaudia Czerwinska, and you were watching World News Tonight. Please stay tuned with us here on TVP World, as we will be bringing you more on the summit taking place in Alaska.